welcome back to another vlog and welcome to 2021. This is our first week back in the office since we had our New Year's festivities, and we are back at it. We've got a ton of trucks to wrap up this year, a ton of trucks on deck, but first and foremost is this badass 1999 wagon that we just finished up, and we're doing the final test miles on it right now. So over the next couple days we're going to rack up about 500 miles on it, make sure that everything is just dialed on it, and then we ship it back to our customer, which I think is going to Texas. So it should be leaving here in the next couple days. So I've got a bunch of test miles to do on it, but before that I want to do a quick walk around, show you what we've done to the truck. So first and foremost is this truck is kind of a more subtle build than we normally do as far as like the over the top, which I really dig, because if you come around the side over here, you can see, like, for example, we don't have the Viper front winch bumper on there. Sometimes that's a little bit too much. People are looking for something that's a little bit more stock. What we did with this search and rescue winch bumper is to give it a very stock look, except we modified it quite a bit to make it look a little bit cleaner than factory. So there's just a flat plate up there. It actually has a little taper to it, allows the winch, the oversized winch, to mount inside here, which is a 12,000 pound winch, and then tapers around the sides and clean it off, give it a nice finished look. So you can have a lot of form and function out of it, but also have like something that does look finished. It doesn't always have to be 100% function. You can have 100% function along with something that looks really clean, like how this piece is bent around here. Just subtle little changes over the factory stuff. And then of course we've got the D-ring brush guard, rigid lights, 20-inch rigid in the front, and then we have a 50-inch rigid mounted on our light bar up on the top. But one of the biggest things we're trying to do with this truck is to give it a very gray-black look. So we went with a graphite gray, but we added a little bit more metallic flake in the finish. So this is our textured paint on it, and it has a lot of pop to it. And that textured finish kind of gives it a subtle look when you have that flake. So we tried to add a little bit more flake to it to give it a little bit more sheen, a little bit more pop to it, and then finish it off with all black accessories. So if you look at the truck, it just looks stealthy, it looks mean, but definitely refined. We also got rid of the original lights, went with the LED turn signals in clear, as well as the marker lights up on the top as well. Coming around the side, you'll notice all of the hardware, all the accessories are all powder coated black as well. That matches the new mirrors as well as all of our powder coated parts. But overall, just a really clean truck. That's not this elaborate truck that's over the top. Just a really good everyday driver. We've got our full belly pan rocker panel protection down here. It does not have the steps. Again, it gives you kind of a cleaner look, a little bit less broken up here without the steps. Again, just subtle and clean. Blacked out BMF rims on 38-inch tires, open countries, which are my favorite. I really like the open country MTs. Just a great everyday driver, and gives you a lot of traction off-road, but also it's not too over the top when it comes to lack of wear life. So wear life is pretty good. These tires, if the suspension is dialed on this, you keep your steering components in spec and alignments done, and rotating the tires, you should see probably 25,000 miles or so, maybe 30 if you really push it, but typically we see about 25,000 miles out of those tires, which is pretty good overall. And then coming down the side, search and rescue roof rack, and we put aluminum slats up here. That also helps out with a lot of the heat and sun just baking on this truck, because it is going back to Texas. That's going to help out and get a little air pocket in between here and the roof. So that will help out with overall cooling. I mean, if you can reduce that roof temperature by 5 degrees, 10 degrees, that makes a big difference and reduces the load on the HVAC system. And then coming to the back, 4-inch exhaust system. Forgot we have a Duramax conversion up in the front. We'll get around to that in a second, show that to you. Just do a walk around first. And then we did our ladder system on the factory bumper back here. Again, just really clean. So we've taken the factory heavy duty bumper and we put all grade 8 hardware on here. and it just looks good as opposed to using the old blacked out hardware. It has like a nice little subtle look to it. And then we put our tire carrier on here. This is a drop down tire carrier, swings out, drops down. And then we did dual ladders, rear 20-inch rigid light up here. It is offset to the left-hand side or driver's side of the vehicle, and that's because you just couldn't fit a tire light up here. So underneath the hood, straightforward conversion, Duramax diesel, LBZ putting out about 450 horsepower to 500 horsepower. Each one varies a little bit. Typically, the closer to the stock figure you are as far as horsepower and torque numbers go, it's usually a little bit more stable. And what we found is that the more power you put on there, sometimes they vary a little bit more. So we've actually done 2 identical conversions for one customer a few years back. Did dyno tuning on both of them after we did the full conversion, and they were about 35 horsepower difference between the 2 engines. And what we were expecting out of those trucks was a little bit higher. They were pushing like 680 horsepower, and one was at 680, like dead on the numbers, and the other one was about 30 horsepower higher. So same exact tune, we went through it, swapped the tunes back and forth. It just produced a little bit more power. Same remanufactured process, so not exactly sure why that happens, but we have seen that consistently when you start adding a lot more power up in the higher 500 plus horsepower run figures, it starts to change a little bit. But the truck is just really clean, straightforward, resealed engine. So what that means is we take the engine apart, replace all the gaskets, repaint everything, new seals, we inspect all the internals on it, and then same with the transmission, rebuild the turbo on it, new water pump, alternator, AC compressor, all the ancillary components going onto it are all new. Just a great engine. It's not just a used engine with 500,000 miles on it. We go through everything on it, put it back together. We do that all in-house, and that primarily allows us to control quality. So we know exactly what we're doing and what we're putting into it, so we can use the best of the best components as opposed to relying on some outside company that's going to reseal or reman the engine for you. You really don't know what they're putting into it, and ultimately it's our namesake. It's on the line. So if something happens, we're paying to fix that. So that's the Duramax conversion side of it. Let's go ahead and jump inside. Guys, so we are inside the truck now. This is hands down one of my favorite interiors. It's a 99 H1, 2000 era too, I also like. But specifically like this whole cockpit dash feel, it kind of wraps around you. I really dig it. The Alpha interior is really nice as well. There's no, mistaking that. It's definitely a lot more, I would say probably a lot cleaner, not as choppy as this, but I dig this choppy look. Everything is like, the fit and finish is all about form and function here. I also like the overhead console. This is a great spot up here where you can mount gauges, you can mount switches, and it kind of adds to that like airplane cockpit feel. So I dig this interior. This is probably one of my favorite ones. Now, we put the odometer gauges in here. Also on the newer trucks, they have kind of gauge pods. So this whole area right here is filled in with a pod of gauges. It's obviously newer, so it has a little bit more value added with the gauge pods, in my opinion, just because year over year they kept on coming up with different upgrades, and that was one of them, and I dug that. But this is a lot easier to put the gauges in. You're already set up, ready to go. There's really nothing wrong with the round gauges, and it gives you options to go with odometer, factory ones if you want to, or something cool and custom. We've done a lot of custom gauges, different colors, different needles, you name it, we've done it. So a lot of options there. We also have some cool new gauges coming out this year as soon as Jason gets off his ass and finishes up the design work for the LCD screens.
Hey, it's been the holidays.
That's all you got. Hey,
it's been the holidays. Could you just
this is
threw a
seriously
curveball at me?
This is seriously what I have to deal with this guy.
You threw a curveball at me.
Honestly, the professionalism is not here. So anybody out there looking for a job, like a YouTube vlogging guy, video editor, let me know. Send your resumes to Jason at PredatorInc.com. I'll have him interview you guys and find a replacement.
You're horrible.
You deserve it. I want my LCD dash changes done. Okay, so getting back to this truck. One of the most unique things that you can probably see here is the Kevlar finish on the inside. Customer wanted to bring the outside Kevlar finish to the inside. Very tedious work to make that happen. A lot of prep work goes into getting the dash ready to go for this stuff, and then laying down that textured finish. We actually did a battleship gray with like a hint of metallic finish in there that gives it a little bit more pop. Not as much metallic, I think, as the outside, but it gives it kind of a little bit more pop, as I said before. We brought that inside, and it has a very rugged, kind of like a more of like a Humvee interior feel, integrated in with the H1, but it's also offset with the suede headliner as well as all leather work up here on the top half of the truck. So we kind of did a two-tone finish where the top half is all wrapped in leather. So we've done a lot of different interior seat options. Everything from cross stitch patterns, refoam, squared off finish on the seats, to this seat, which is actually the factory seat. It has more of a rounded finish, very soft, very supple leather on here, and a tan finish. You wanted to have a little more contrast brought in, and I think it was a good idea too, because you have a lot of grays and a lot of blacks, kind of overwhelming amount of grays and blacks in here. So it's nice to kind of mix that up a little bit with the tan seats. And these are just really clean, straightforward, factory looking seats, just rewrapped by Roy upstairs. Coming over to the head unit, we have a Kenwood head unit over here. Normally the HVAC controls are down here. The problem with that on this dash is that you can't do the full head unit touch display. You have to go with a single DIN stereo, which is a smaller, older style stereo. So what we've done is relocated it up onto the center of the dash. The advantage with that is that it clears up all this area here, so you can do a full-size head unit. You can do extra switches on here if you want to. Gives you a lot of flexibility right here, but it also gives you controls for the passenger if you want to have the passenger have controls of the HVAC system. So huge advantage with relocating it up there. Then following it up, instead of having the cigarette lighters down here, we actually put USB outs right here as well as on the other side. So a lot more flexibility with relocating and designing out this lower mount and having the USB outs down here. We also have the switch for the rear aux HVAC system right here, and then controls for the lights. So that's what the customer wanted to go with. Right up here, great way to go. So that wraps up pretty much everything up in the front here. Let's jump in the back and I'll show you what we got back with. Sitting in the back here, we have a lot of useful cargo space that's been added in here with our search and rescue line. So what that means is we have this real high-end product line called Search and Rescue, and it predominantly is focused on utilizing as much space as possible, very utilitarian focus. So I've got a center console here, the Search and Rescue center console rack, and it opens up as well as has another mount on top, on the lid actually, that you can throw a bunch of cargo inside here. You can mount gear on the side if you want to. You could do, for example, fire extinguisher mounted on there, so it gives you easy access to it, but fully secure, and then it locks closed as well. And then moving back here, this is the center divider. Usually there's just a bar that goes across here with a flat plate on it, and we've got a Search and Rescue cargo divider that opens up, so you can throw a bunch of gear in there, close it, and secure it in place. And it's also fully removable, so you can just slide this out of here if you want to. And then we finalized it with the Search and Rescue fender well rack. So looking over here, this is probably one of our most popular items for a wagon because it gives you full cargo capabilities up here in your fender. Normally you just don't have a lot of room up here. You can't really throw stuff, it's just gonna fall off. And then we do have a basket style one that wraps around. It holds some gear, but this allows you to really kind of pile it up pretty high. It has these hook mounts up here as well as down here in the corners. So you could throw some tie downs across there or bungee cords and fully secure that gear in here. You can also throw a ton of gear on here on this whole bungee system. So you can just shove it in here, rags or whatever you want to in this area, as well as over here. So a lot of flexibility with these guys. This really adds to the whole cargo capacity of the truck. So great addition for a wagon. guys, so this is a wrap up of the 99 H1 wagon that we just finished up. We're putting a bunch of test miles on it this week, and then it ships back at the end of this week to the customer. So thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. We've got a ton of new stuff coming out. Everything from new parts to new shop truck, new builds that we're just starting. You'll see on future vlogs here probably later this week or next week. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon.